I said someone on radio show today, I said, with the technology that exists in the studio now, if you have the right soundboard and you have the right, there's something called auto-tune, which makes it impossible to sing out of tune. There's a program called Pro Tools where you put the music together and synthesize it in a way that literally they could make my Labrador Retriever sound like Pavarotti one day in the studio. So it sort of solves the mystery, for example, of Britney Spears. When you think about it. And years ago, I had a friend who was he had a brother who was a roadie and down in Miami. And all the big acts came through. And so the guy said to me, Britney, he's working the Britney Spears show. He worked the Britney Spears show last weekend. And I said, wow. I said, what was that sound check like? And he just laughed. He said, there was no sound check. He said, it was all on tape. They just flipped the switch. And the big question was how bad the lip syncing was going to be on that particular day. So I start, what you do is you collect these little things and you sort of weave them into the story. Eventually you start to write the novel. So in my novel, Cherry is spending some time with her lip syncing. Not her singing coach, her lip syncing coach. So there is an art to it, you know. The first thing she has to do is learn the lyrics to the songs that she herself claims to have written. So there's a steep learning curve. But I bring a couple characters back who I like a great deal. The old Governor Skink has to come back because I've been dying to turn him loose on South Beach. So he makes an appearance. He becomes attached to this actress who I think is for me, the most fun character in the novel. Her name is Anne Delusion, and she's great. I like her a lot. And another character I brought back, who I never thought I would bring back again. He first appeared in a novel called Skin Tight many years ago, and he was a bouncer at a club on the beach in that novel, and he was an aspiring hitman. And normally a guy like that isn't going to really make it to the end of one of my novels. Something awful is going to happen. Something terrible is going to happen to him at the end. But I don't know why I became attached to him. I think I felt sorry for him. He's 7 foot tall. He's never played basketball. You can imagine such a thing in this country. It's almost un-American to be 7 foot tall and never play basketball. So he's lived his whole life with this burden. Everywhere he goes, he's asked, who do you play for? So I can understand the homicidal impulse a little bit. Secondly, he was a victim of a very tragic electrolysis accident when he was young. He has a terrible complexion, a hideous, frightful complexion. I feel sorry for him about that. And in that novel, he does some bad things in Skin Tight. So about, 2/3 of the way through, he's trying to kill a guy in his house in Stiltsville down in Biscayne Bay, and he jumps off the house into the water, and a barracuda removes his arm. I always do this to bad care. I always encumber them in some way with something they have to sort of limp off stage with, limp or crawl, moaning the whole way. So anyway, his name is Chemo, this guy. So Chemo ends up, and it's nothing. After he lost his arm, I had to make this literary decision about, he's not your average character, and I don't think he would go for an average prosthesis. So I said to myself, what would a guy that worked at a punk club on South Beach want for an artificial hand? And I thought, weed whacker, right away. So I went to this plastic surgeon, and I said, look, Jerry, I don't want you to tell me this is plausible or not. I want you to tell me that if I came in here and asked you to attach a weed whacker to my stomach, could you do it? And he got all excited. He thought about it and started sketching stuff out. And we figured out exactly how to do it. And where the battery pack in a little holster. And he got way too excited about it. But once he decided it could be done, I said, that's all I need to hear. So Chemo finishes that novel with going off to Rayford for 17 years for a second-degree homicide. And with a weed whacker, and he's allowed to keep the weed whacker on his arm in prison because they had, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the prisons have really large gardens, and he's on to work in the garden. He's got the tools already. So anyway, after I was done with that novel, I didn't kill off Kimo, and I got a letter from Elmore Leonard, the great mystery writer, and he said, I'm so glad you didn't kill off Kimo. I really liked it. So it's always been in the back of my mind that maybe when he gets out of the slammer, you know. So I did the math, 16, 17 years, whatever it is, which is plenty of time in Florida, second-degree murder. It's nothing. In fact, and what would he do when he got out? So, and I'm thinking back, and we go straight from prison into the mortgage business. Adjustable rate mortgage. Most of you probably didn't see this. Miami Herald ran a big series about a year and a half ago, in which they found over 2,500 felons who had been bundling mortgages for the good people of Florida, with no scrutiny whatsoever, including a couple of convicted murderers. They just went straight into the mortgage business, and the state of Florida welcomed. This was during the the boom times, the high times. Didn't matter. And I just thought this is a great country where you can walk out of the slammer and straight into real estate mortgages. So anyway, I figured that's what Kimo would do. Then of course the market goes into the tank and the recession hits. Now he's back on South Beach, and my view was he would be a perfect bodyguard for this wayward Pop-Tart cherry pop. And I thought, I just wanted in that position. Here's the thing, here's a little bit of backstory. I don't know if you've ever been trapped in a conversation with somebody who speaks like everything. I was like going out, and I was like ready to hit him, and he was like, what are you doing? And your life becomes the verb for said and everything else. And it's awesome and everything's sweet. And dude, you just gotta chill. And you're really at that point, you're only thinking one thing: electric cattle prod. So, I did some research on this. And you can pick up a pretty inexpensive one for about $49.95 on the internet, and they work really well on 600-pound steers. So while in prison, this is the backstory before Kimo takes his bodyguard. While in prison all those years, he struck up a correspondence with a Carmelite nun, and she sent him books on grammar, syntax, writing. So he had become very proud of the fact that he wasn't talking so much like a common criminal anymore. And now he's trapped with this 22-year-old numbskull, when she's not wasted, which is most of the time, she's yammering away in Valley Girl speaking. And so there's a scene where he gives her a list of things she's not allowed to say around. Sweet, awesome. It's just a short list, but just don't say this, and don't misuse the word life anymore. And of course, it only lasts about 10 seconds before she can't help herself. And so the scene ends with her flopping like a mullet. It's Hattie. And just after once with the cattle prod. It's my fantasy. I know it's against the law. I've been trapped in these conversations. There's nothing permanent, no permanent damage, but it's conditioning. It's a sort of Pavlovian conditioning. So by the end of the novel, her grammar is much improved. Anyway, that was where I bring it on. As usual, I have to. There's plenty of sick stuff in this book, which I always have to apologize for in advance. The hardest thing for me about these novels is sending them to my mom. Mom's 83 now, and she God bless her, she's proud of me at one level, but these are tough books to send to your mom, who's kind of raised as a strict Catholic family, And so I sent them to her, and she says things like, well, it certainly is a colorful book, Jack. And I said, Mom, you don't have to read it. Don't even pretend you have to read it. She goes, oh, there's nothing in there I haven't read before. And I said, yeah, there is. So I've been sending her the kids' books, and I feel perfectly cool about that. And she seems to like those. She reads and she likes, and she talks to her hairdresser about. The others, she just kind of puts on the shelf. I always feel bad for Mom. I know that there's a voice inside of her saying at some point, well, where exactly did I go wrong?